How did this man escape to Italy after trying to bomb London, travelling on Eurostar at the height of the manhunt? Good evening, this is Channel 4 News and Sport. His face had been splashed across posters and television screens for days. Osman Hussein was publicly identified by police as the man who had tried to bomb Shepherd's Bush underground station. But at the height of Britain's biggest manhunt, he jumped on a train to France and another to Italy, where his lawyer says he could spend months fighting extradition. And the Italian government says he was aided in Italy by a network of Ethiopian immigrants. Is this evidence of a wider European terrorist network? Here, Britain's biggest Muslim festival kicks off, with participants asking what it means to be both British and Muslim today. Killed with an axe for being black, a vicious racial murder in Liverpool. And as astronauts on the shuttle take a walk in space, astronomers say they've spotted a 10th planet in our solar system.
And the sports headlines tonight, more woe for Gordon Strachan on day one of the Scottish season. Only a last-minute goal salvages a point for Celtic at Motherwell in a 4-all thriller. Schumacher's back on pole, but is it too late to save his world title? And a Chinese basket case. Things get a little heated on the court in Beijing.
Immigration officials, police and the security services all failed to spot the suspected 4th London bomber when he escaped Britain on a Eurostar train 5 days ago. Channel 4 News has learned that British officials had set up 3 levels of security checks at Waterloo Station last Tuesday as part of the massive manhunt. The suspected Shepherd's Bush bomber, Hussein Osman, would have had his passport scanned and his face examined before he was allowed onto the train. Tonight, police are investigating how he slipped through. With that and more on the ongoing police investigations, here's Katie Razzle.
The focus of the investigation in Italy overnight, an apartment in Rome where Hussein Osman, believed to be one of the 4 suspects in the attempted bombing in London, had been hiding. He was tracked down by a trace on his mobile phone calls and arrested by Italian police yesterday, it's reported, at his brother's flat. Until then, we knew the face but not the name of the man believed to have tried to blow himself up at Shepherd's Bush on the 21st of July. Born in Ethiopia as, it's believed, Isaac Osman, he used the name Hussein as an alias when he posed as a Somali refugee and was given British residency. His partner and 2 children live in South London. Hussein Osman fled to Europe on a Eurostar train, said Italy's Interior Minister.
Sulla base di queste attività che si sono sviluppate ininterrottamente.
After the attack, on the basis of this investigation, it became possible to document the various steps of the flight of Osman Hussein from Great Britain when he left London from Waterloo Station.
That train journey was 4 days after Osman's photo had been released by the police, 5 days after the attempted bombing. A national manhunt well underway, all ports supposedly on alert. Eurostar said today it isn't the company's responsibility to vet who goes on their trains. However, Channel 4 News has learnt that on that day at Waterloo there were stringent passport checks being carried out by the police and security services. But Osman slipped through, and in Italy today 15 properties, including his brother's internet cafe, are being searched. The police investigating whether Osman was helped by contacts in the Eritrean and Ethiopian communities, as the Italian government today suggested. Italy has been accused before of having an entrenched network of Al-Qaeda sympathizers.
For a long time, Italy has been used as a logistical backdrop, as well as a recruiting area and a financial center to support other activities.
Proceedings began this afternoon to extradite Osman to the UK. The British are applying under a new fast-track law, but Osman's lawyer says he will fight any extradition attempt, and that could mean a 2-month delay. The other suspects, of course, are already in British custody and being questioned at London's Paddington Green high-security police station, including Mukhtar Saeed Ibrahim and Ramzi Mohammed, arrested yesterday in West London. Also under arrest, the police confirmed today, is Ramzi's brother Wabi Mohammed, suspected of dumping the bomb at Wormwood Scrubs last Saturday. Today, the flat on the Peabody estate is screened from view.
It's not as visually dramatic here today. The police have cordoned off the entire estate, all 16 blocks, not just Block K, where the raid happened yesterday. Forensic teams are inside, but apart from the police, only residents are being allowed on and off this estate.
And across town in South London, this flat is also cordoned off. Hussein Osman's wife and mother were arrested here on Wednesday. Tonight, an American newspaper is reporting that Osman has told Italian police he acted to scare Londoners and never intended his bomb to go off.
And the parents of a British man detained under suspicion of terrorism offences in Zambia have complained that their son has not yet had any consular access, and they fear he might be sent to the US detention camp in Guantanamo Bay. 31-year-old Harun Rashid Aswat was arrested last week in Zambia on the request of the American security services. British police had been looking for him in the wake of the July the 7th London bomb attacks, but they're reluctant to link him directly with their investigation. Aswat was brought up in West Yorkshire and had contact with two of the London bombers right up to the days before the attacks. In a statement, Aswat's parents said, "Our son, albeit estranged for many years, is surely entitled to the presumption of innocence as any other British citizen. Our government and the Foreign Office is dilly-dallying and does not have the decency to confirm Harun's detention. We wonder whether the government's attitude would have been any different if it was a white, non-Muslim citizen detained in a foreign country." And tonight the Foreign Office say they are trying to secure access to the British man being held in Zambia, but so far they have failed to do so. Now, Merseyside police are hunting a gang who murdered a teenage college student with an axe, apparently because he was black. Anthony Walker, who was 18, was set upon near his home in Houghton, near Liverpool, last night. Police called it a vicious and unprovoked attack which had been racially motivated.
Shortly after 11 o'clock last night, Anthony Walker was with a cousin and his white girlfriend waiting for a bus when a man in a hooded top unleashed a torrent of racial abuse at the group. Rather than retaliate, the teenagers tried to walk away to another bus stop. They were followed by 3 or 4 men, and as they walked, Anthony was attacked with an axe. Hit with such force, the weapon embedded itself into his forehead. His companions ran for help, but when they returned, found Anthony on the ground, dying. He was taken to hospital and transferred to a specialist neurological centre, but he died at 5:25 this morning. Police say the attack was vicious and totally unprovoked. They're appealing for help.
These are small, tight-knit communities. We believe that the offenders are local people. And what we're saying is we want those communities to give those people up, to tell us who they are and provide us with witness evidence. Right? Give those people up, because otherwise it'll end up as a stain on those communities.
Anthony Walker was studying for his A-levels. He dreamed of becoming a lawyer. Police say there have been a number of racial incidents in the area over the past few weeks, but the brutality of this case, they say, is unprecedented.
The charity Save the Children has told Channel 4 News the situation in Niger is already worse than the crisis in Darfur, an area which has seen acts of genocide. Drought and locusts have created a desperate famine in Niger. Aid agencies say the world has been too slow to recognise this crisis. And the warning comes as the Disasters Emergency Committee is calling on the public to help tackle the dire food shortages. Telephone and online donations can be made from today, while a television and radio campaign will follow next week. Save the Children's spokesperson is Amanda Weisblum, and earlier I asked her if charities like hers share some of the responsibility for not warning the world early enough.
There's huge amounts of children that need assistance. We will get all the figures when we've done nutritional assessments, formal ones. At the moment, we're concentrating on feeding the children, but we will do surveys to get real numbers. And it will probably stretch, the appeal certainly will stretch to cover Mali and Burkina Faso.
Because this is a problem that could affect the whole region rather than just Niger, where it's in crisis at the moment.
Yeah, very much so.
So we could be looking at something on a pretty large scale of a humanitarian disaster then?
Yes, that is correct.
When it comes to the government of Niger itself, you say it is a very fragile state. They've been criticised for not handing out free food when the shortages first become available and not for better preparing for this. Is there a problem in countries like that when you have a government who's not necessarily helping the aid agencies?
They thought that they were helping. Basically, they kept their grain stores for as long as they could to see if the population could actually recover from itself, and or that the international community would assist. And then they sort of fed it through quite slowly. The problem was that the price was so high that the people who couldn't afford it will never be able to afford it, and they're the ones that become the most vulnerable. And usually those are the women and obviously the children and the families of those very poor.
There have been some suggestions that aid agencies, when putting out these disasters appeals in the past, have exaggerated the situation to a certain extent, crying wolf almost, and therefore people not necessarily responding in the way they might when you see a real crisis hitting the screens.
I don't think any of the aid agencies would cry wolf, and certainly not in this instance. Our nutritionists have said they have not seen anything as bad for a very long time, which would include the crisis in South Sudan, Darfur, Chad, etc. So this is, we are not crying wolf under any circumstances.
How much difference does it make when the money and the aid only comes through at the last minute like this? Does it make it a considerably more expensive operation to mount than if you'd been able to be in there a few months ago?
Oh, very much so. We are sending food by plane. Planes cost a lot of money, and those resources could easily have been reverted a few months ago to sending it by land or by ship, and it sort of frightens us in a way that that money is being lost because we have to fly it, and we have to fly it now. If we didn't fly it, the crisis would get worse.
Amanda Weisbaum from Save the Children talking to me earlier. And the Disasters and Emergency Committee telephone number can be found on our website. Now, 2 British bodyguards have died in Iraq after a roadside bomb blew up a British embassy convoy they were guarding in the southern city of Basra. The convoy was attacked at 9:30 this morning as it passed through the southwestern edge of the port city, and 2 Iraqi children were killed when a second device exploded minutes later. A little-known insurgent group, the Imam Hussein Brigades, has just claimed it carried out the attack. And lawyers for the former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein say he was attacked by an unidentified man during a court appearance in Baghdad. Saddam's legal team claim he exchanged blows with a man during a hearing at the Iraqi Special Tribunal on Thursday, and they've threatened to boycott future proceedings. American forces who have been guarding Saddam say no such incident took place. And now with the news of Celtic's first Premier League match under Gordon Strachan and the rest of the day's sports, here's Bridget.
Football first, and it may be July, but the domestic season got underway today in Scotland. Celtic kicked off proceedings away at Motherwell, the Glasgow side given the opportunity to redeem themselves after a 5-0 humiliation by a Czech team in the Champions League last week. But it was another difficult match for new manager Gordon Strachan.
After the embarrassment of Bratislava, Celtic's players were desperate to impress. John Hartson's early header gave them a much-needed confidence boost. Motherwell were showing plenty of confidence themselves, Brian Kerr pulling one back on 20 minutes. But then Hartson took hold of the game. A deft header was followed by a powerful penalty. A first-half hat-trick for Hartson, a 3-1 lead at half-time for Celtic. But Motherwell came back after the break. 2 quick goals bringing back memories of the last game of last season, when their last-gasp victory deprived Celtic of the title. Those echoes got louder with the 4th Motherwell goal from William Kinneborough, Celtic's under-pressure new manager, in disbelief. But his chargers mounted one last charge. Hartson's header, somehow scrambled home by Craig Beattie in the 90th minute. Quite a way to start a season.
So Celtic grabbing a dramatic draw at Motherwell. Elsewhere, Dundee United drew at home to Aberdeen. Inverness Caledonian Thistle won away at Falkirk. Hibs and Dunfermline drew 1-1, and Hearts won 4-2 away at Kilmarnock. Formula One and Michael Schumacher's brilliant qualifying session for tomorrow's Hungarian Grand Prix may signal the return of Ferrari to winning ways. Schumacher shaved almost a second off Jarno Trulli's fastest time to clinch the 64th pole position of his career and Ferrari's first this season. Juan Pablo Montoya qualified second fastest. Trulli and Kimi Räikkönen came 3rd and 4th. Racing, and at glorious Goodwood, the Vodafone Nassau Stakes was won by the favourite Alexander Goldrun, ridden by Kevin Manning. He held the 4-year-old filly back for most of the uphill run and then unleashed a burst of speed in the final 2 furlongs to cruise easily to victory. This evening's final of the 2020 Cricket Cup will be between Lancashire and Somerset after a dramatic day of action at the Brit Oval. Lancashire's strong batting lineup saw them through the first semi-final against Surrey. Andrew Flintoff with 49 from 29 balls and Andrew Simmons with an unbeaten 52 steered their side to 217 for 4 and a 22-run victory. In the other match, Leicester couldn't chase down Somerset's relatively low total of 157 for 9. Despite a 6 off the last ball, the defending champions fell 5 runs short of their target. Finally, basketball is by rules supposed to be a non-contact sport, but it seems no one's told the players of the Chinese and Puerto Rican national teams. Their game in Beijing last night descended into a mass brawl after a Chinese player was fouled. Soon the crowd joined in, hurling insults and water bottles at the visiting team. Local newspapers have called the behaviour shameful, setting a poor example as the city prepares to host the 2008 Olympics. That's the sport. Now back to Sarah.
Thanks, Bridget. Now, it is nearly 10 billion miles from the sun. It's a world of rock and ice, but it could also be a whole new 10th planet. If astronomers at the California Institute of Technology are to be believed, it would be the first new planet for 75 years. It hasn't got a name yet, but once it is officially approved, the celestial map could have to be redrawn. Our science reporter Tom Clark explains.
3 grainy images, taken 90 minutes apart, show a distant but bright object gradually orbiting our sun. Could they be the first glimpses of a new world, or just fuzzy snaps of yet another larger than average lump of rock beyond existing planets? Our solar system is a family of 9: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and since its discovery in 1930, tiny distant Pluto. But not any longer, insist the discoverers of this new object. The would-be planet, so far with just a label, 2003 UB313, is nearly 10 billion miles from the sun, about twice as far out as Pluto, and perhaps the most distant object in our solar system. That far away, there's not much its discoverers can say about it, but they think it's a rocky and icy planet. It's bigger than Pluto, about 2,000 miles across, and it takes 560 years to go round the sun. Claims of a 10th planet aren't new. This contender, called Sedna, was discovered just last year, and more have been found since. It's getting to the point that many astronomers argue all distant rocky objects, including Pluto, should be stripped of their planet status. But this time it's different, say the discoverers.
This is the first time that an object has been found that's actually bigger than Pluto. It's the biggest object that's been found in 158 years. Because it is so large and so much bigger than Pluto, which is accepted as a planet, it seems reasonable that this is the 10th planet that's out there.
The idea of Pluto being a planet for astronomers is slightly on the way out, I would say. But this is a bigger object than Pluto. They're probably not much bigger and much further out. So I would be sceptical.
Before we rip down the classroom posters and pulp the textbooks, astronomy's governing body has to decide if this is a planet, and if so, whether to accept the discoverer's proposed name. Harder than it might sound.
All of the Greek or Roman gods have been used up almost by asteroids, and the International Astronomical Union doesn't want to name another object the same thing that an asteroid is named. So we had to come up with a name that no one else had used before. So it doesn't exactly fit the mold of the old ones, but it certainly fits the spirit.
New planet or not, astronomers agree it's a significant find that could teach them much about how our solar system, and therefore our planet, came to be.
So what should we call planet number 10? Send us your thoughts, and we promise to try and forward the very best suggestions to the International Astronomical Union. Now, for some weekend DIY, which took more than a quick trip to the local B&Q. 2 astronauts on board the Space Shuttle Discovery got out the grouting tools today. Steve Robinson and Soichi Noguchi floated out of the shuttle's airlock and headed to the open cargo bay. The pair experimented on some damaged tile and carbon samples using a large putty knife to coat them with a sticky material.
Now that's a full bag. It's beginning to tear out the edges and still swelling on the crack, so as soon as I smooth it over, I see more swelling.
Researchers want to see how well the mixture adheres in space and how to apply it in zero gravity.
I I think I'm going to start putting my tools away, Andy. Yeah, I would stay, drop it in the way and get the temperature paired out.
NASA hopes the material could be used to mend cracks in the shuttle's wings. Now, when we come back, in celebration of Muslim life, hundreds of families are gathering at an outdoor festival this weekend to reclaim the positive values of their faith. Days of family fun at a festival in the great outdoors, but this is no Glastonbury. It is Britain's biggest ever Muslim gathering held to celebrate the faith. Thousands of people are expected to head to Lincolnshire for Living Islam 2005, and John Sparks went along too.
The first Muslims lived in tents in the arid lands of the Arabian Peninsula, but present-day Lincolnshire is much damper than that. The Hanif family from Watford taking a short break in the rain to grapple with their tent. Were you worried that this might turn into a bit of a Muslim Glastonbury?
Hence the wellies, yes.
This field hosts to the largest gathering of British Muslims since 2003. The weather is proving tricky, but so are the events of the past few weeks. Many people here feel watched and under scrutiny.
On the way, we did notice the police. Now, had there not been this sort of background the last few weeks in London, perhaps we wouldn't have noticed the police. Perhaps we would have just put it down to them being around on a large event. But now, obviously, everything that we see has another meaning.
The Islamic Scouts of Great Britain doing their best to wake the neighbours this morning. The camp's catchphrase is, "It's time to live Islam, not to die for it." The organisers told us this message was specifically aimed at the younger participants, and their education has been a key and vibrant point of discussion here.
We want to be careful about the madrasas which have been less regulated, and we want to make sure that what they're teaching our children is what we want our children to learn, without a doubt.
Is that a change, do you think? Or do you
I
think people
don't
in
think,
the past have been...
I think there has been steady change on that over many years. I think the situation 10 years ago was much worse than it is today. Today, most of the teachers understand English.
Where I live, the Imams all speak Urdu. So if you ever have any problems, it's not exactly easy to, especially if you can't speak the language properly. So they won't really understand you, you can't really understand them.
Well, how do you communicate with them?
Well, then you'd have to speak to someone else.
Many Muslims are caught between the demands of their faith and the realities of secular Britain. Who are they? To whom do they owe their loyalties? They are big questions for young men.
Well, I was born here, I've got the papers, but I'm Arab, you get me?
In fact, it's a question on everyone's mind here. A recent poll declared that 2/3 of British Muslims are now considering moving abroad. A small percentage even said they supported the bombings in London. So is British citizenship and the Islamic faith compatible?
I'm a doctor, I'm a mother, I've got 3 kids, I'm a Muslim, I'm British, I have Pakistani heritage, I play the piano, and these are all important to me.
Under this canvas roof, some of an estimated 15 to 20,000 Britons who've converted to Islam. The recent bombings, arrests and disturbances have been difficult, but in a different way for some.
There's more concern for me and worry that I might be sort of flirting with something a bit culty or a bit extreme. But there's not been any real discussion about the events. Everyone just says it's terrible, full stop. No one asks whether it's really to do with Islam or what my thoughts are or anything like that.
The Muslim community are under the microscope, both from the outside but also from within. The shock of recent events has subsided somewhat, but the issue of identity and the burden of extremism are now at the fore. Khalid Hanif has other worries, though.
Obviously, they had absolutely no confidence in my tent erecting abilities.
Is your wife still talking about a B&B?
I think she is. She's trying to book herself into the Holiday Inn, I think. Yeah.
John Sparks reporting, and we're back tomorrow at 7:30. Until then, that's Channel 4 News. From me and from Bridget, have a very good evening.
Channel 4 Weather is sponsored by Expedia.co.uk. Create your perfect trip.
The low pressure that's produced heavy rain and even tornadoes over the last few days is moving away to the east. High pressure will build from the west, bringing settled weather. Much of England and Wales will stay cloudy overnight with outbreaks of rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland will become mostly dry. It'll stay cloudy tomorrow morning with patchy rain over Wales and southern England. Drier weather in the north will extend further south during the day. Some sunny spells will break through, but it will stay quite cool with light north winds. And the outlook. Most of Britain will be fine and dry on Monday, but rain will return to the northwest on Tuesday.
Expedia.co.uk. Create your perfect trip.